Hi everyone, it's Raiki Sai from GIFTEDgiving.club. This is an organization where we focus on helping people to live a better life and give a better life. So by living a better life, each time we're inviting a guest expert to share something that they know all about, that we can enable ourselves to enrich our lives. And to give a better life, we're actually going to be using something that they very kindly donate to GIFTEDgiving.club for us to sell to you, for you to take your kind of work with their project or the area even further. So all of the money that we raise, well, 50% will go to givewell.org charity, which is a charity or a range of charities that are all kind of have been reviewed and evaluated, so we know that they're going to good sources, to good places, and the money is being really used very well. And then the other half of the money will just go on to help us keep promoted gifting, GIFTEDgiving.club. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest, Joanna Hennon. So she helps ambitious women to be more soul smart, and she can tell us a little bit more about what that means. And that is to use all the wisdom and the power that they already have inside themselves at a soul level to create more success with more ease. She believes that all of us are much more powerful than we believe we are, and we just need to get out of our own way and finally be able to experience the success that we desire. So, hi Joanna, it's really great to have you on the show.
I'm so excited to be here and part of your really awesome project.
Thank you very much. So I know we were sort of talking a little bit before we recorded that we've been in each other's sort of online spheres for a while, so it's really exciting for me to have sort of experienced all your energy and all the beautiful stuff you're doing online, and to finally be able to bring that into something that I can work with you on, and hopefully we can raise some good money. So
yeah, that's awesome. And it's so weird though, the online space just works in such a weird way. Like I think we've known each other for like 6 years, or maybe even this is the first time we're talking.
Exactly, but I love that it's for something so good, so that's great. Okay, so one of the main thing that we wanted to talk about today, because I'm aware of it being something that you are very deeply engaged in, you know a lot about, is spirit guides. So I guess, and this includes me because I only know what you do and what I see you do online. What does that mean? For those of us who don't know what spirit guides are, tell us a little bit about what they are.
Well, so first of all, I'll say that my whole approach to spirituality and all this stuff is that we can't possibly know the whole truth. So I will not pretend to have all the answers. I can't do that. So all I can tell you is how I understand, how I perceive what's happening in my own world. And so, and that's how I kind of teach it further. So the way I see it is that we're all souls. So we're all energies. And when we come here when we choose to be born into a lifetime, we make agreements to be supported by other souls who kind of stay behind, who are maybe further in their on their journeys, on their own kind of journeys of soul development, and they kind of agree to guide us while we're here. So we have this connection. We're born with this connection. There are lots of stories of children sensing some kind of connection and some kind of presence in their lives, for example. And I just think that we lose it as we kind of grow older and integrate into normal society and that kind of thing. So I just think of it as friends that that stayed behind in a different place. Perhaps we've had lifetimes together, perhaps we've had other experiences, and they know us really, really well, obviously, because they know us from that kind of beyond time and space thing. And they know what our fullest potential is. They know what we're capable of, and they understand what we wanted to accomplish in this lifetime, what we wanted to experience. So they have that possibility, along with our own higher self, to kind of guide us towards the choices that we kind of always meant to make.
Okay, that's really cool. I love that explanation of them being like friends, because I'm a really woo-woo person myself, right? But sometimes when I hear spirit guides, I think how can that be? How can I make that real in a way that I can understand? And I just love this idea of it being from a place that you've been before, where there are people who know you, who understand you on a level that maybe sometimes you forget. And, yeah.
That's it. I think we're born into this lifetime and we just forget where we come from and all that we are and all that we're capable of, and that's it.
Yeah.
And you can work with your own spirit guides. Like I work with guides. I work with kind of energies that I'm not sure if I've known. But at this stage, it doesn't really matter to me anymore. Like I know when I started, it was definitely someone who was my friend or in my soul group or someone very close to me. I could feel that.
Mm-hmm. But now you're kind of open to receive whatever is available to you. And so you said you feel that we lose this connection. And I think this is something that's very common in a lot of spiritual fields. Why do you think it is that, maybe children start with that connection and then somehow it gets lost? What happens? What are we doing to ourselves?
Well, we kind of glorify other aspects, right? No, we're not praised for being able to connect to another world. Like we're told, that we're making stuff up or, get real or this is how it is. And we kind of live in a different space. So eventually I think we just have so much noise from the space that we're in that the other stuff kind of gets crowded out, and you're kind of left thinking, was it ever real, or was it a childhood thing?
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I perceive it anyway. And I think it's just normal. I don't think it's something to judge ourselves for. In fact, it's probably just part of our soul journey, to remember so that we can, to forget so that we can remember again,
Absolutely. And I think there's so many things in life that we do that with, as children, we play a lot, and then as adults, we almost forget how to play, and then it's about coming back to play. And so it's a similarity. Okay. So how did you come to this journey? Tell me a little bit about your background, and obviously, I guess as a child, as you say, you maybe lost that connection and then refound it, or have you always had that connection there?
I had a connection. I had no idea what it was. I've always been interested in stuff like past lives and, just kind of the weird stuff. I could never like pass a book in a bookstore that was about these topics, or, it kind of showed up in those ways. I experimented with like Ouija boards and things when I was a teen, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But really my spiritual journey only really started maybe around the time when we met, I think. Probably about 6-7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of I'm a very ambitious, logical person, and that's the world I was in. So I'm a high achiever. I had a great job, and I was kind of on that path. And at some point, it started getting really, really stressful, or I wasn't maybe handling the stress in the same way, or I started maybe wondering, is this really all there is? Like I remember actually thinking, like I must have been like 33 or 4 or something. And I remember thinking, like, I'm nowhere near retirement, like I'm going to have to do this for a really long time, and you just felt like, that's a long, like, time of the same stuff, office type stuff to be looking forward to. And actually I ended up having a nervous breakdown because just from all the stress. And it's during that time when like the universe kind of gave me the space in my life. It was at that time that stuff started showing up again. So the spiritual stuff started showing up again. And I discovered something called the law of attraction. And I was like, okay, like things started to make sense to me in a way that I hadn't considered before. And that's how it started.
Okay, that's great. And so you talked about, working with spirit guides. So what does that look like for you? I guess, what did that look like for you then when you first got into it? And what does it look like for you now? Just so people can get a feel for how they might be dipping their toes in and how they might get to, I guess, a more advanced level.
Not more advanced, because I think that's a judgment, but maybe deeper.
Yeah.
So we always, when we learn, we go deeper into any practice, whether that's meditation or yoga or anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I started, I was totally freaked out. So that's even though I wanted it so badly, because I found myself in this kind of group of people in this art course. Actually, it was an intuitive art course, and everybody was channeling and stuff. And I was like, why doesn't anybody want to be my spirit guide? Like I also want a spirit guide. It was really coming from that ego space of I want to also be cool,
Yeah.
So it wasn't happening. And after a while, I was just like, okay, forget it. And one day in this class, like something really weird happened, like time stopped and I lost 10 minutes and there was this voice in my head. And that's kind of how it started. And I ignored it completely. because I was too freaked out to do anything about it. And then I kind of started dipping my toe. And the way I started was with oracle cards. So that's always, always, always my my main tip to anybody who wants to start, is start by just pulling a card just for yourself. If you have like dreams of doing this with other people, then start pulling cards for other people and just see how the messages resonate and how you're interpreting things and how things kind of pan out during the day. So if you pull a card in the morning, you know, and kind of spend a bit of time with it, spend 5 minutes to think, okay, what is this message? And then see what happens during the day, and then come back to it in the evening and see, okay, well, how did that show up? Or what could I have understood from the card in the morning that I didn't until after the fact of whatever happened during the day? So that would be totally my main tip. That's how I started, and it just got me into that consistency of checking in and asking questions to something that had a higher perspective.
Okay, so the oracle cards are like a physical gateway to your spirit guides, basically. Is that what you're saying?
I would say so. Yeah, and and they're fun. You know, they kind of. I'm all for fun. Like, I'm not really. I understand that the work is sacred, and I understand those concepts, but I'm not that kind of person. I'm not a ritual kind of a person, really.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, kind of the beauty of the art and just the fun aspect of having these pretty cards, you know, you have to be honest about these things. That just really made sure that I stuck with it, right? So it wasn't a chore. It was something that I looked forward to. It was something that I really enjoyed doing. So that means that I was able to have that consistency, and my practice just went deeper. So I got better at it.
Okay, that's great. And how you talked about oracle cards, and I'm aware that there's loads of, like, hundreds, maybe thousands of decks out there. How would a person who's new to it go about working out which deck to get?
Whichever one you like best, honestly, you know. And I got my first deck, like, I live in Belgium, so these things aren't as available here as, like, if you were living in London. Where are you, Rika?
Yeah, near London, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's loads of shops there where you can go, whereas here, not so much. So I got mine off Amazon, and so I just looked at what was available, and I had just read The Mists of Avalon.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of, for me, like, that whole story was like nonfiction about how life used to be, and maybe, I don't know, maybe where I was, I don't know. It was just a weird experience reading that book. And I saw that there were cards called The Wisdom of Avalon by Colette Baron Reed. I was like, oh my God, I have to have these cards. And that's it. So it was really just choose the ones that feel really great, that you're really excited to get. Like, your highest excitement, that feeling, that emotion of excitement is a soul nudge, right? That's why we're told to follow our excitement, to follow our curiosity. That's where your soul is leading you. So just go and see which ones light you up.
Fantastic. I love that soul nudge. It's like, yeah, just a gentle push in the right direction.
Yep.
I love that. That's great. Okay. And I guess you could have different decks over the course of time. So it might be that you're drawn to one that you're laughing because you have, like, hundreds of decks.
I know. Like, I have them all. Yeah. Yeah, I can't help. I'm like, it's a business expense. I can have 3 more.
I love it. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So, I mean, some, you know, I see that I use certain ones for certain situations, you know, so I can see already from the deck that feels right to use.
Yeah.
I can already see already a part of the message. So you'll find that when you have more, then some of them will be for certain situations and some of them will be for others. But yes, you can have as many as you want. That's my personal belief.
Treat yourself to more oracle card decks. Cool. Okay, so that's where you started. So what about how do you work with them now, and how have your spirit guides kind of helped you get to where you are?
So now I work with them a little bit differently. I don't use the cards as much, although I do sometimes too, just when I find that I get into that kind of too serious space about everything and kind of start taking myself and my business and everything but too seriously, then I take the cards back out for myself. Mm-hmm. But what I like doing most is a process, well, it's not even a process, something called automatic writing. So I will just sit down in the morning and tune in to the energy, and you can develop how to do that, right? So that's not something that's really weird and only for some people. Everybody can learn to do this. And then I just start writing. And that's, I either ask a question or get a topic or pull a card if I'm in that space. And then I just start writing without any judgment or editing or anything. And that's, I consider that my message. So I do that for everything, including like what to create in my business and how to phrase things on my sales pages and all sorts of things. I currently, actually, interestingly, with the Wisdom of Avalon cards, I currently work with a group of energies who call themselves the Avalon Collective. And our work together is all about bringing that wisdom, Avalon-like wisdom of empowerment to as many people as possible. So it's really that message of you are powerful. So I'm working with them, and when I need kind of guidance, I guess, I start writing. That's how it comes out.
So it's kind of, it's almost similar to the oracle cards, but it's more of a connection to that link, and I guess that intuition or the message. You're more attuned, I guess, to receiving those messages, or.
I think the difference, and this is what I see with clients as well, the difference is in trust. So the difference isn't in being able to receive the message. The difference is being willing to trust the message and act on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you maybe would trust a card that's pre-written that is a message to you, but it would take some time to believe a message that seems to be coming from yourself almost.
That's right. Yeah. Am I making this up thing? Right?
And so how would someone, if they wanted to learn how to channel in that way, do they need to work with somebody like you to gain that sort of access to their spirit guides, or what's the process for learning to trust and in that automatic way?
I don't think they need to work with anybody. It's a personal choice. Depends kind of how you work and how willing you are to take the necessary steps, let's say. There are plenty of books. There's one called Opening to Channel by Sanaya Roman. That's very good. There are loads of books about channeling. So, you can just buy a book and try it and see, the nice thing about working with someone is, of course, that they hold space for you, right? So it doesn't even have to be one-to-one. Like I run a group called the Soul Space, where I have loads of like guided visualizations, including ones to connect with your guides. And like, I don't have to be there when you do it, but I am there if you have a question. I am there if you think it's not working. I am there if you're stuck. And I think that's nice.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of branching out into other realms and stuff, and you don't really know whether it worked or to trust it. And so there's that. And then of course, if you're working with someone, then the trust becomes easier, comes faster, because you have confirmation. So then I can feel into the energy as well and be like, yeah, that's fine. Like, you're doing fine. Keep going.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're on your own, then you question probably a lot. I did anyway. Like I questioned all the time, whether I'm making it up or maybe I got it wrong, or like, what if I gave the wrong person the wrong message? I mean, you question all the time. It's just human nature. So you don't have to work with someone, but depends on how you react to such things and whether you're able to overcome those kind of ego things on your own.
Yeah, and I guess particularly at the beginning of that journey, there's probably a lot of questions and a lot of resistance and a lot of ways of tricking yourself into stopping almost. That having someone even just to be like, no, yeah, you're good, just keep going, just keep showing up, which we sometimes can't do for ourselves. Yeah,
indeed. And also it's those nudges to go deeper. So like the way I teach to work with oracle cards isn't just to read the book, it's to actually like look at the card and see what you're drawn to. Because I believe that the messages aren't, the person who created the deck had some message in mind. And of course that influences it because that's their intention and their creation. But it's like your guides will get you to pull a certain card so that the message that they want to send you comes through. And that will depend on each person, because I have a different filter to you. I have a different set of symbolism, of life experiences, of things that I can call on in me to make those connections between things and be able to say, okay, that's my message and this is what it means, right? So by working with someone or being in a group that is doing this together at the same time, at least you get that, you get that encouragement to go deeper, not just stay on the surface and be like, oh, okay, the money card, that means money is coming, because that's not necessarily the case, right? I've pulled the money card many times and money didn't come.
Totally. Cool. That makes a lot of sense. And do you, have you come across, we've talked about kind of resistance and challenges with this, which I imagine that, we all face as we go deeper into something, and you hit a point where you've got some resistance or you've got a challenge that you need to sort of work with to help yourself go to the next level, or go deeper. I know what you're saying about saying levels. It makes it sound like not a mastery thing. It's about that connection.
Yes.
So what about with yourself? Have you had moments or challenges which have really kind of caused you to need to go deeper in that journey? And I'm just curious to sort of maybe relate that for other people who are seeing that.
Yeah, I think my probably my main challenge is that I am the world's most impatient person. And I imagine a lot of people would challenge me on that because they think they're most impatient. They're not. I'm the world's most impatient person. And I get so frustrated with like fluffy guidance and like, all this like love and trust stuff. I really, it just annoys me.
Like, be more specific.
I know, I'm like, I need instructions. So that was my challenge, is to learn to work with the energies in a way that that gives me what I need. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's kind of a whole, I think I went through like just a whole process of like, first of all, like setting boundaries in my relationship with my guide. So this is, we're going to do it, but this way. Like, otherwise find somebody else. like, no, it has to work for me as well. And that's a self-confidence journey, to be able to say that and say, no, I want to do this, but it needs to work for me. Mm-hmm. Like, I need to be, I need to feel good about this. And it needs to be kind of going where we want it to go collectively, not just you. So, so that's kind of been my challenge, is to work out like how to do that, and how to really, really learn to be able to translate messages that seem vague mm-hmm. into specific stuff, right? And this is really kind of where my zone of genius is, right? Because I'm so good at that because I needed it. Otherwise, it was just driving me insane. That I can really relate the message that you get to your question in a way that will give you actual actionable steps, not just like, trust that you're on the right path.
And is that something that you do for people in the soul space, if they are you're helping them to go through that process? Yeah,
if anybody who wants to do that, we kind of tend to go through various topics together. So currently we're doing self-love and self-acceptance type of work. But when the channeling stuff, when the guides work comes up, it's something I definitely support with. And I do readings, I do all sorts of things that kind of helps people to not only get the message, but translate it. Because I get so, you can hear it, like I get so rapid, like so excited. Because I'm like, channel guidance and readings and all this stuff, like it's not just a nice to know thing. Like it's not just, like I always say, I'm not an information service. That's not what it's for. It's not that you read it and they're like, oh yeah, it's nice, and you put it in the drawer and then go about your day. No, you're supposed to do something with it. Like, that's why it came through. So take the time to translate it into action, into what does that mean for your day? What does that mean for your goals, for your business, right?
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Sorry, I got a bit overexcited.
No, I love it. I love it. This is what this is all about. So what are some of the most, I guess, transformative changes you've seen, whether that's in yourself or with people that you've worked with? It'd just be great to get some examples of how that might have changed people's lives. It can be small or it can be big, or
yeah, I mean, I think it ends up being a really big thing to learn to trust yourself in that way, that you are being guided, that you're doing nothing wrong, that you are always enough, mm-hmm. that you are capable of creating those big dreams that that sometimes, usually we've had since we were children. Mm-hmm. Those things are possible for you. Although, all that stuff, it makes a huge difference to life, right? Mm-hmm. And more specifically, like I have many clients who learned, like where we learn to apply it to their business. And learning to run your business from that intuitive space when there is so much online noise is a huge gift to yourself, right? Because basically it becomes nicer. Like it becomes less frustrating, less annoying. You give yourself permission to only do the things that work for you, that feel good. Not in a like, oh, let's just do fun stuff kind of way, but in a, okay, some things will feel kind of stretchy and that's good too, right? But the things that really work for you, not just following other people's programs and instructions. So learning to do that makes a huge difference to your business because you enjoy it more. And when you enjoy it more, then more success can flow in, right? We all know this, like when we're in that frustrated space, success can't come in. You can't, even if it was staring you in the face, you wouldn't be able to see it, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So it makes a huge difference.
And I think that's something that I've seen in terms of what you've been doing that's really resonated with me, because as you said, we've known each other for a few years and we've both been growing kind of businesses in that time. And it's so easy to be like, oh, I need to follow this program, or I need to learn about Facebook ads, or I need to blah, blah, blah. And then sometimes you execute on that, and because your heart isn't in the thing, it doesn't work. So the person's like, I made $1 million. And you're like, I made like $1. Whereas you're sort of saying, yes, okay, you can learn from that stuff, but actually you need that internal guide. You need to be listening to your path. And
yeah, I think like we have that information within us, your higher self, your guides, they know what you're capable of and they know where you're going. And I truly believe that if you have a dream, then that dream is meant for you. Like we don't all have the same dreams, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So the ones that you have, they're possible for you. They're not just pipe dreams. Like they're not accidental. You are meant to do those things. If if you have this like calling to change the world in some way, then you're meant to do that.
Yeah.
And there's a part of you that knows how to do that, right? And it might involve, of course, we need to learn, like if you're going to be running a business, you need to know something about like running a business. That's clear. I'm not saying to like leave everything, to just flow and intuition. You have to kind of have some kind of knowledge as well. Right? But you have to, I think the most important thing, and my throat's getting dry, is to have the guts to be like, no, like that doesn't work. I don't feel good about that. To have the guts to do it your own way. And that's what'll lead you to the success that's within you, those things that you actually want.
Absolutely. And what an empowering way to look at that, because whether it's business or life, you could become so overwhelmed, but actually taking that message and that connection and allowing yourself to feel guided is a really different way of living, really.
It's so much nicer. Like I used to be such like a victim mentality person, like all these horrible things always happened to me, and what did I do to deserve this, and this is horrible and this was horrible. Like it was, you wouldn't even believe it looking at me now. That's the way I lived my whole life,
Yeah.
And then once I discovered this stuff, just the idea of going through your day and looking for messages, like expecting to be guided and looking for that guidance and for meaning and for that depth and for that wisdom, it just makes everything just more enjoyable and more fun. And you get less caught up in the stuff that used to make you really upset, because you're like, well, what is it showing me? You just have a different set of tools to approach the things that would kind of maybe send you down a spiral of despair before. So it's just much nicer way to live.
Beautiful. It's like a beautiful addition to your spiritual toolkit. Sounds like it. So, and so speaking about that, some people who can say that sounds great, but I'm kind of skeptical. And it sounds like you maybe at some point were one of these people who was very busy and stressed out and didn't necessarily buy into the woo of what this sounds like, and I can relate to that as well. But what do you say to people who are skeptical about this?
I actually work with a lot of people who are not skeptical, but who value their intelligence and their logic.
I like that reframing. That's good.
But yeah, I mean, if you're really skeptical, then find some other way of finding meaning in your life, right? Nobody's going to try and convince you or but if you're curious,
yes,
then that's the soul nudge, right? If you're curious, then explore it, right? Buy some books, listen to some podcasts, like just explore it. Just give yourself that chance from a place of curiosity. And like, you don't have to stick with it if you don't want to, right? It's all a personal choice. So it's okay if you're skeptical. Like, there's nothing wrong. It doesn't make you worse. It doesn't, and in fact, I think it's really healthy to challenge these things and to talk about them, because as I said at the beginning, like, none of us can have the full truth from this vantage point. It's not possible. So by asking questions and being skeptical, we help each other to go deeper and to find our own truth, right?
Yeah.
And we can really sink into this is this. Okay, this I can question, but this feels really true to me. And then you have something to hold on to when things get tougher, or when something goes not in the way that you wanted it to, or whatever.
Yeah, so it has more depth to it, that it has more meaning if you've worked through that. And some of the things I think about when I've been skeptical about things is also that, and I guess the more that you learn to listen to those messages, the more you can differentiate. But sometimes that skeptical nature is actually coming from somebody else. So I might be, it might be, I don't know, my parents or so I'm repeating something that actually, if I examine it, I don't actually believe. but
that's the beauty of this journey, right? Is that the more you look for this meaning, the more you approach life from this way, the easier that awareness comes. You'll be able to spot the times much more quickly when you're kind of playing out somebody else's stuff, or asking somebody else's questions, or like resisting going deeper, or anything like that.
Okay, that's cool. So you've kind of given some quick and easy ways for people to get started. If people are really busy, what would you say is the best way to start? Would you still say, a pack of oracle cards? It's a quick thing. It's
the best way to start. I really think it's the best way to start. It's easily accessible. It's fun. It's a really good way to start. If your thing is that you're really busy, then I will say, because I naturally kind of also, I'm a doer, right? A lot of people who are intelligent and ambitious and all these things were people who want to do stuff.
Yeah.
I have found really that the action, the things we do, it doesn't matter. What matters is the energy behind the action. And you can see that so clearly, and sometimes you do the same thing, and if you're feeling crappy about it, it's going to end this way. And if you're feeling great about it, it's going to end this way. And you can see the action was the same, but your energy behind it was different. And it can be the difference between making $1 and $1 million, right? It's really that. So I teach that taking care of your energy is the most important thing you can possibly do before anything on your to-do list. So what I do is I have a half hour scheduled in my calendar every morning for energy mindset stuff. And it can be, a meditation. I'm not a huge meditator, but it can be a meditation. It can be reading something that's empowering and, or spiritual. It can be the automatic writing with your guides. It can be all sorts of things, right? But something that makes you feel confident and in your power and in the greatness that you are. And it's a choice, right? If you don't want to do that, then don't do that. But know that it's the energy behind your action that matters. And if you feel confident and good and what we call high vibration, which is really in that state of confidence, right? Then you can, then any action you take will have great results, right?
Absolutely. I love that. It's the energy behind it that matters. I think even if you got up every day and just told yourself that, that would be a good step in the right direction.
It's made a huge difference to my life. I have created such because I like to play around with these things, because I am a logical mind at the end of the day. So I kind of experiment with these things, and I'm like, okay, how I want this, how can I create that? So then I do my work around that, and I set my intentions, and I work on the energy around that. And it happens, and I'm like, it starts appearing in my life, and I'm like, oh, that's what I asked for. It's working. Like, this works that I've been teaching for 6 years.
Yeah. And I think that's really true. I think a lot of time people don't even put themselves into the right mind frame to receive or to be open to that stuff, and actually spend a lot of energy going, why don't I get what I want? Why can't I have the life I want? And if that's what you're putting out, that's kind of what you're going to get, right? So.
Exactly. And there's we can look at it in the, magical, manifesting, whatever way, but you can just look at it in the logical way as well, right? That you're going to take different actions based on how you feel. The days that you feel really low, you don't want to do anything. You want to hide, and watch Netflix. That's not going to get you anywhere. Whereas, if your energy is high and you feel good and you practice self-care and you fill your cup and you feel inspired, then you go out there and you create podcast series like this one. So
yeah, exactly. No, that's awesome. Thank you. So what are the next steps for you on this journey with your spirit guides? Where and again, you may not know the answer, but what do you feel about that at the moment?
Well, the next steps on my journey the next step is to go bigger. So my whole theme for this year is to reach more people. Mm-hmm. So I can't believe I'm saying this on something that is actually going to go public, but okay. So
that's part of it, right?
yeah. So my message is about being soul smart, and I'm realizing that I really want that message to be mainstream. Mm-hmm. And if I want that message to be mainstream, then I need to be involved in mainstream things, and and maybe be published in mainstream publications and that kind of thing. So whereas I have been kind of doing a lot in that kind of small online space, mm-hmm. of entrepreneurs, mostly spiritual entrepreneurs, that kind of thing, now I'm really branching out and stepping way outside of my comfort zone. And I'll be pitching to a lot of the bigger magazines and papers and stuff, just so that the message becomes more normal, because the way I explain it, it's not weird. Mm-hmm. I really feel like I'm I'm a good person to explain it in a way that can reach more people. Mm-hmm. And if we, if more people on this planet felt empowered to change their lives, we're not even talking about changing the world. We're talking about changing your own life, because each of us is a leader, right? Yeah. We all have either children or communities or teams that we lead at work. Like, we're all leaders, and if we lead by example, the whole world's going to change. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. I love that, and that you're putting yourself out there. And I guess this is with the support of the channeling that you're doing. And is there some of this coming from?
Yes, it's all coming.
You're like, no, and it keeps coming back.
Yeah, it's definitely coming from that higher space, and it makes sense, right? It's really kind of returning to that place, like whether Avalon was real or not doesn't matter. Like, that's that we can talk about that, but we're not going to come to any conclusions. But people were empowered. People knew how to use their own gifts. It was a society based on intuition and more of that feminine power. I'm not saying we're getting rid of masculine power. It has to be a balance, right? Mm-hmm. But bringing more of that feminine power, intuition stuff in. And that's really what we need to do. That's what the world needs, is more of that. And that needs to be normal. Like, it can't be confined to circles where people already know about it. That's kind of...
Okay, cool. Sorry, that cut off slightly there, but that's fine. Oh. No, we're still recording. But it's saying it can't be confined to... say that again.
It just can't be confined to a space where we are to people who already know about this stuff and already use it, right? Because that's all of us kind of just swimming in the same soup and not getting anywhere.
Yeah,
right? It needs to be more widespread to actually have that effect, because most people are living in that busy, logical world.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it's there that we need to spread this message and teach more people to trust themselves and to let themselves be guided. It's really that allowing. It's not something that you're learning. It's just something that you're allowing to happen. It's your natural state.
Exactly. And there's the soul smart. Your soul is already smart, as it were. You just got to kind of listen to it.
And you have to get out of the way, right? I always say like that it's like your soul. So you have these dreams and your soul knows how to get to those dreams. And then you're like, no, I'm not ready. I'm not enough. All these things. And it's like for your soul, it's like dragging a sack of potatoes. It's like you're just making it so hard.
Come on. Why are we going there already? I love it. That's cool. Okay. So just a couple of questions about you, really, and then I think I'll stop yapping your ear off. So, what, based on your experience, what kind of topic or area do you think? And I know you're probably going to resist this because I'm getting the feeling that this is how you're going to be, but that should be mandatory or should be encouraged for people to learn about from a young age. So we don't talk about this kind of stuff at school.
No, we don't. I'm very passionate about education. My son goes to a Montessori school because I really think that the education systems that we have were created for a different era. But even there, I find what's missing is that empowerment aspect. So what I would really think should be mandatory in schools. I do have very strong opinions about this because I just think it's really important, is that law of attraction aspect, is that your thoughts create your reality, your emotions create your reality, and you can control them, right? So you can learn to use your emotions and your thoughts to create what you want to experience. Life is not just something that happens to you and then you die. It's something that you can co-create with all these things that we don't totally understand. But, if you're into science, then quantum physics will explain some of it. So there is some kind of scientific base for it. And that I really, if children could understand that, and it's not that easy. Like my son is a little bit resistant to this idea because it's crazy, right? Because that's not what he's learning.
Yeah, it's quite at odds. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that would make a huge difference. If, gosh, I found my teenage years really, really difficult. And if I had anybody teaching me this stuff, I think a lot of my choices would have been very different. Mm-hmm. And I think like we can actually make people's lives a lot easier with these concepts.
I would agree, because I think particularly in the last few years, we've been going into more of a victim mindset where things are happening to us, and without getting particularly political, I think that's where a lot of some of the energy that we're in globally is coming from. And if everyone could actually own their lives in an empowering way and say, well, I can engage in this in a different way. And yes,
that's right. And we shouldn't probably get too political, but I have some thoughts on activism as well, because I think that a lot of it comes from the wrong space. It just feeds into the stuff that we don't want. Mm-hmm. So I really think that starting with your own energy and making sure that you feel good, whatever that is for you, that you feel confident, that you feel in your power, that's the place to start for everybody. And then we have a chance of the world changing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, as you said, just to touch on the activism piece, it's a good thing as long as it's aligned to the right energy, if you know what I mean. If you're just sharing things on Facebook because it's clickbait and scary, then it's not really activism. But if you're making that connection within and then acting, as you say, doing something with those messages.
And that's what we had this conversation. I can't remember what political event triggered it, but there was something that happened. And in the soul space, we had this conversation. Mm-hmm. And I remember I channeled a piece of guidance from my guides for people to consider. And I remember that whole conversation about first you need to feel good and empowered, and then you do your action. Otherwise, there's no point.
Because you're not making decisions from the right space then, are you? Yeah.
It's the energy behind the action.
Absolutely. I love that. That's a great takeaway. I think that's fantastic. Okay. So I think this would be a good opportunity for you to tell us a bit about what you're going to offer on the website for people then to use. So you've talked about oracle cards and automatic writing, and obviously there's the soul space, which we can go into in terms of where people can find you.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about what you're going to offer and how people can use that as a step on their journey if they want to grab something from you.
Well, the spirit guides, like, that's not the only way you can invite energy into your life. And there's just lots of ways you can do that. And one of the ways, if you run a business, is to invite that aspect of energy into that. So your whole energy is a business, right? If you think about that, then you're co-creating your success with this business energy, and your whole potential audience is an energy as well. And you can connect in with that as well. It just makes things a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of like does, if we have kind of different fields of existence, let's say, then this does the work on that different level, you know?
Yeah.
Which helps. So what I will offer is a visualization on connecting with your ideal client. It's one of my favorites. It's I think layers as well, so you can use it over and over as you grow, to connect in with that energy of your ideal audience. Whether we call it ideal client, but it's really, if you have a message to share, then it'll help you to reach the right people.
Yeah, and I was listening to it before we recorded. It's about 20 minutes long, which is a great length. And I was also thinking, oh, this would have been so useful, like even before I started my bits, because it sort of just, I don't know, unearthed lovely things inside of me, if you know what I mean. And I was like, oh gosh, and it could have been anything. It could have been me working for a company and needing to go and present to people and making sure that I do that in a way that's aligned to how I feel. Or it could be me having the tiny seed of a business in my head, but being a bit overwhelmed or not really sure about how to do it. I think it could apply in lots of different scenarios.
I think it can. I mean, when I created it a couple of years ago, like, I was working with a lot of entrepreneurs. Now my client base is a little bit wider. But I called it ideal client because that's what we were working with at the time. But really, it's kind of opening you up to share your message with the right people.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's great. So that's going to be on the GIFTEDgiving.club website. So it'll be at GIFTEDgiving.club/spirit guides for people to find when it goes up. And one more question before I get you to tell us a little bit about how people can find you. But what I'd like to ask you is, who else you think that we might like to speak to in terms of anybody, any topics or any people that you think it'd be interesting for Gifted Giving listeners to hear from?
Oh my goodness, I don't know. I'll have to think about that and maybe send you a list.
Sounds good. It's just if you've got anyone, because I think it would be really nice to kind of go on recommendations from people who
yeah, sure. Let me maybe tell me after we stop recording, maybe tell me like who you already have and what kinds of topics would interest you, and I will definitely share the names of anybody. There are lots of amazing people that are in my world. So
awesome.
Totally.
Sounds good. Okay. And so how can people find out more about you and what you do if they want to connect with you? Obviously, we've got this ideal audience visualization.
Yes.
If they get into that and then want to dive even deeper, how can they work with you?
Yeah, I'm at joannahennon.com. At joannahennon.com/freebies. I have freebies. Shockingly. And one of them is an Oracle card webinar. So there's more info about Oracle cards there. And one of them, the latest one, which is really cool, is a workshop called Slide into Success, where we work with the parallel version of you, the super successful version of you. So it's just kind of a thing that a concept that I really like to work with is the parallel universes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's for you to grab as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think all the information is on there, including about the soul space.
Okay, cool. So if they wanted to dive into this kind of group that you're working with people on the soul space, they can get to that.
Yeah, that's at joannahennon.com/work with me or something. It'll be in the menu anyway.
Cool. That's great. So yeah, everyone, I hope you enjoyed that with Joanna. And as we said, if you wanted to help us raise money for charity, then just go over to GIFTEDgiving.club /spirit guides and grab this fantastic ideal audience visualization to get you started. Thank you so much for joining us, Joanna.
Thank you so much for having me.
It was great. Thank you.